Hey everyone, we're going to talk some rookies, some fantasy rookies, and what to do in your rookie drafts. Now, I haven't had a rookie draft yet in terms of a full rookie draft. I've just been kind of doing some different ones. Some of the developmental leagues with Scott Fish, who designed the site. We started those. And most of my rookie drafts, they're kind of all over the place. I don't have too many that I would say are normal. Maybe the hyperactive league, I've been trading around and getting some different picks in that one. But I wonder what exactly is a normal rookie draft, and how many of those I'm going to have. So I wanted an opportunity to kind of talk about them because I have the FFP, the 1.5 PPR. I have another developmental league. So Badlands takes place way in the future, and a lot of people are asking me, who should I pick? Who should I pick in these Dynasty drafts? Who should I pick in these Dynasty rookie drafts? When? So I want to put a little video out there for people to watch and see, hey, here's some of my sleepers, here's what I'm thinking. And if you haven't listened to it yet, go search for the DLF, the Dynasty League Football Podcast. You can get it on iTunes, you can Google that. And I did one this past week. We did a 2-round rookie draft, just mock draft. It was a lot of fun, and I think we got a lot of info out there, especially on the big name guys. So I'm not going to focus too much on that. You can go back and listen to that. It's a pretty good podcast. I'll kind of go position by position and say kind of where I think these guys are going. First, let me say at the top of the rookie draft, I think this is a draft where you can trade back and feel pretty comfortable with it, especially in a PPR league. I don't think there's a whole lot at the top that separates guys. Gio Bernard might end up being a good PPR running back, but they've already talked about him not being a workhorse back. Eddie Lacy has the injury issues. Le'Veon Bell, I think, is a little bit soft, doesn't quite run as hard as a 230-pound back once. I don't think Monte Ball's a very good player and not a good fit for the Denver Broncos. So it's about trying to find this. All right, maybe the wide receivers, I guess. If you're really wide receiver needy, then top 4 pick is pretty good because DeAndre Hopkins I like a lot. And Tavon Austin is right up there, and a lot of people have him high up. I'd personally go with Hopkins over him, but that's me. And then Cordero Patterson has a nice opportunity. But usually it's the running backs that people want, and the tight ends usually don't go very high, especially with Tyler Eifert going to Cincinnati. He'll probably fall a little bit. So it's kind of a crazy year where sometimes it might be better to have the 1-4, the 1-6 than the 1-1. So if you can move down, I think that's one thing. If you don't love any of these players, if you're not wide receiver needy, something like that, don't be afraid to move down. And I think the wide receiver depth is so good that late first, early second, you can pick up some of these guys. I'm just going to have a laptop here just looking at it. Marcus Wheaton, Robert Woods. Marcus Wheaton over in Pittsburgh now, Robert Woods at USC and Buffalo now. Those are 2 players. You can get late 1, early 2, I think could make more of an impact than your top 3. A lot of people like Justin Hunter at Tennessee. I think he's a nice upside pick if you want the big upside. And he's falling a little bit sometimes because people are gobbling up running backs. That's what you do in rookie drafts. So I'm going to go position by position. And quarterback-wise, E.J. Manuel and where he's going second round-ish in a 12-team PPR league, there's a lot of upside to be had there. And I like E.J. Manuel more than most just in terms of his fantasy ability especially. He's someone that can run around. He's got to run for touchdowns. He's big. He's built. He can throw the ball around down the field. So I think he's going to put up fantasy points even if he's not the best quarterback. I mean, think of Vince Young, rookie year, second year, was a quarterback who wasn't that great, but wasn't a bad fantasy quarterback. He got you some decent points. I think E.J. Manuel's going to be better than Vince Young. He's a heck of a lot smarter than Vince Young. So I think he's going to be better than Vince Young. That translates into fantasy points. So if I need a quarterback, he's someone I'm not going to shy away from if he's sitting there in the second round and think he's not going to make a big impact. Geno Smith is tough to pick. If you would have went to the Jets, I'd probably be very high on him. The Jets worry me a bit with Geno Smith. That's my big thing. I guess you're talking maybe 3rd round if he's fallen there in a PPR rookie draft. I'd start to consider him. But this quarterback class is a whole I might pass on. Maybe take a later round flyer on Matt Barkley, on Mike Glennon out of Tampa. And Tyler Wilson in Oakland is one that I really like taking that late round flyer on because I think he has a shot to get to the top of that depth chart in a year or two. And I think he has a lot of grit to him. I think He's a player that Dennis Allen probably likes a lot. So I think there's a lot of possibilities for Tyler Wilson as a developmental quarterback. If you have a deeper rosters and you can roster those type of guys, that's always a worry for me too in giving this advice. Is how deep is your roster? Can you really keep this guy for a year? That type of thing. Running backs. All right. Gio Bernard right now for me is the 1-1 pick. He was the first running back off the board. He is kind of built like work done. He's not as big as some of the other backs, but he can handle some hits. Now, he's had some injury issues. Probably my biggest fear, but they're going to use him in the passing game. Jermaine Gresham's not going to be there in a year. They still don't have a wide receiver, too. I think Gio Bernard's going to get a lot of opportunities as well. So that I think that's a pick that makes a lot of sense. Eddie Lacy is right up there for me as well. But, with Eddie Lacy and Gio Bernard, it's kind of a fight between, okay, do I take the upside play of Eddie Lacy, who I think, in my opinion, is the most talented running back in this draft. Now he has Jonathan Franklin behind him. The Packers' offense is out there. And for the Packers, a lot of people say, hey, they don't run the football. He's not going to get a lot of carries. The Packers have used one running back under McCarthy for their whole tenure. At least 75% of the carries for every running back they've had. Cedric Benson was on pace for over 270 carries last season before he got hurt. I mean, they're going to use one running back, and they're going to use him a lot. So I think that's going to be Eddie Lacy. It's just if he holds up physically. So I think he's a top 5 pick. Now, some of the running backs going ahead of him is Le'Veon Bell out of Pittsburgh. A lot of people I see love him as the 1-1. And I think for situationally, that's not a bad pick. I don't like Le'Veon Bell, but I like Pittsburgh. I like the situation. I think he's going to instantly be 3-down back in there, run him a lot. Run him at the goal line, that type of thing. So I don't think that's a bad pick. I think it actually would be a pretty good pick. But you just have to like him. My fear is he's not going to catch the ball a whole lot, even though he did at Michigan State. They don't pass the running back. They really haven't in Pittsburgh. Even last year under Todd Haley, they really didn't. Even when Mendenhall was in there, Redmond was in there. They didn't do that too much, other than I think 1 or 2 games, if I remember correctly. And Bell just runs pretty soft. So what if he only has 2 yards per carry? Could Jonathan Dwyer sneak in there? Could Redmond sneak back in there? That's a little worrisome to me. So I kind of knock him down my board. I may take him in a draft, I think, just to have him and have that type of upside over some of these top players. We'll see what happens there. And then Monte Ball out of Denver is the other one who I really don't like. I'm really staying away from. He's down as my 6th rated running back. And this is my ratings, not where I take them, because I know a lot of people may have that argument of, you should stick to your rankings or whatever, but it's about value. If I have some of these guys up in my top 10 that I can get in the 3rd round, I'll take someone in the 1st round I can get up there. But Monte Ball, I don't like the fit. I don't think John Elway can evaluate running backs very well, in my opinion. And honestly, Monte Ball is not going to block a whole lot. They still have Willis McGahee, no Sean Moreno, Ronnie Hillman there. I don't think it's as good a situation as people think. These running backs can get touchdowns, yes, but they're not going to get a whole lot of yards. It's still going to be in the arm of Peyton Manning short term. And I don't think long term Monte Ball is going to be that great. I don't think he runs that angry like Eddie Lacy does. So I'm hesitant on him. He's a guy I'm passing on, especially with how high he's going right now. So some of the players, one of the guys that I have a tough time pegging at the running back position is Jonathan Franklin out of Green Bay. Because if you say Gio Bernard, Eddie Lacy, Le'Veon Bell, Monte Ball, I won't say those are top 5, top 7 picks. I don't think you can go wrong. If you like Monte Ball, great. You got to take him high. Take him with your 1st rounder. If you take the flavor that you like out of those players. But where do you take Jonathan Franklin now? 4th round pick. He's a backup to Eddie Lacy. But if Lacy gets hurt, Franklin gets the job. He might run away with that job, and it could be pretty good. I actually ended up with both of them in one developmental league where I already had Lacy. I took Jonathan Franklin in the 1st round just to pair them up. Maybe that's going to be stupid and a waste of 2 picks in the long run, but I like Jonathan Franklin's ability to catch. He's a willing blocker. Not quite there yet, so that's why I think year 1 won't go as well as some people hope for him. But once again, Green Bay uses one running back. They've invested heavily at the position. They also want to fix the position with this draft. He's someone to really look for. He's someone to really look out for. So I don't know. I would start to consider him in the late first of rookie drafts, and maybe even early second if he's there. I think if I'm a team that has a need at running back and really need a running back, he could be someone you take if you can stash for a while. But wouldn't expect immediate results for him. Other guys that I really like. So then it kind of gets to my next tier. Another player that's going relatively high, top 15, is Christine Michael, who's in Seattle. Texas A&M running back, went in the second round. But you have Marshawn Lynch, you have Robert Turbin there. Now, Marshawn Lynch is out of guaranteed money at the end of this year, so they could let him go. They could spend that money elsewhere. But if he's still effective, I don't think they will. Robert Turbin, I thought, was pretty good. Maybe a better number 2 than number 1. So what do you do with Christine Michael? I think if you have a deep roster, especially if you have Turbin or Lynch, then you can start to consider him in the second round. I would probably wait because I feel like he's going to be a player that, unless there's an injury, I think he's going to be a player you can trade for later. That you can trade for halfway through the year. You can trade for at the end of the year. He won't have much production, and you can get him pretty cheaply. So I'd much rather spend a premium pick on someone else and then try to make that deal later for Christine Michael. So he's down in my rankings a bit, along with Marcus Lattimore, San Francisco. I argued this before the NFL draft even happened. If you're a contending team, you don't have a lot of needs, get Marcus Lattimore. Take him into the first round. Take him early second round. If you somehow trade down or have a pick there, take Marcus Lattimore. This is a lottery ticket for a stud running back, for a Steven Jackson running back. And if you can get that as a contending team, that's awesome, and you'll keep winning. And if you don't, you're still going to contend. So you don't have that huge need with that pick. I think Lattimore is a top 12 player in rookie drafts right now. And as you can see, as we get down to it, I have the 3 receivers. I have Gio Bernard, Eddie Lacy, Le'Veon Bell, Monte Ball. You have Marcus Lattimore. So those are kind of high A picks. With Jonathan Franklin, you can toss in there 9. You're still not filling out because this just isn't that strong of a rookie class. Maybe you toss in Tyler Eifert, get 10, those first 10 picks. So I think Lattimore might go a little bit early for my taste, but end of the first round, you want to take a swing, you're a little risk taker, he's a guy to take. So how about this next tier? After those guys, second round, I still need a running back. What am I looking at? Here are the players that I like. Zach Stacy, St. Louis. Has a good shot to produce. Has a good shot to at least get some carries in St. Louis. They don't have this bigger back. Zach Stacy is a bigger back. If you go way back into my YouTube archives, you can find me talking about Zach Stacy, I believe. And I like him. I don't love him. I don't think he's anything special, but he's going to have Darrell Richardson, Isaiah Peed competing with him. Isaiah Peed, Cincinnati had a report out about him not loving football and kind of quitting at one point, but he's coming back. He's going to reinvent himself. That's not a good feeling. I'm kind of taking him out of the equation. I think it's going to be Darrell Richardson, maybe even Zach Stacy as the number 2. If that's the case, Stacy's going to get some carries. He might get some goal line work. He could be one of these later round rookie running backs that really produces. So I think he can do a heck of a lot worse in the second round. Even get to the late first round, there are some people out there that really like him, and the situation's pretty good. So don't hesitate to pull the trigger if you like Zach Stacy. Then 2 guys I think are going to fall further, maybe even to the late second round, that you can get steals with. Here are really the 2 names. And I think if you have roster spots, it might take a year. If you have roster spots, here's the 2 names. It's Joseph Randle in Dallas, Stephon Taylor in Arizona. I think those 2, and then one more guy that I'm really high on. I have 4th in my rankings. The only person probably, I'm not going to take him 4th overall or 4th running back off the board, is Mike Gillislee in Miami. Those are the 3 names. So Joseph Randle, Stephon Taylor, Mike Gillislee, whatever order you want. I think those are the guys. We start looking in the second round, late second round. You can get them cheap. You can get them to be producers. They're going to be number 2 running backs on their team this year, be able to produce. So Mike Gillislee, let's start with him because he's my favorite. He was my favorite pre-draft. He ends up in not a bad situation in Miami. Lamar Miller now has to step up to the table. And I love Lamar Miller. I said it before. I think he's going to be a top 5 running back in fantasy this season. Mike Gillislee's backup's going to get some carries. Daniel Thomas is still there. Daniel Thomas stinks. He's really bad, and I think he could be on the cutting block at the end of the year. And there's some other running backs there that could do some things as well. But Mike Gillislee can block. He's a solid, low-to-gravity running back. He's a nice complement to Lamar Miller. He's not a power back per se. A lot of people want to pick him as a third down back. He's not that either. He's not a third down back. He's a complete back. I think he wins that backup job at least by midseason and starts to produce for you. Lamar Miller has an injury history, so I think Mike Gillislee is the guy to get. Joseph Randle in Dallas, another great situation. Jerry Jones, Des Bryant, Oklahoma State, has an Oklahoma State connection with Boone Pickens. Joseph Randle, solid player, not a great running back, not someone that's going to electrify and run a 4-3 or anything, but DeMarco Murray gets hurt every single year. We know what's going to happen. Felix Jones is out. Lance Dunbar is his competition. I like Lance Dunbar as a third running back, but geez, oh man, Joseph Randle is going to be the guy. He's going to catch passes. He can fill out DeMarco Murray role. He's not all that different from DeMarco Murray, maybe a little bit less athletically gifted, but he gets a starting job. That's what I want in my second round rookie pick. I want a running back that's going to get me carries. That's just going to get in there. Maybe he'll be great, maybe he won't, but at least he gets in there. That's important to me. And then we look at Stephon Taylor, who I like a lot too. Now they got Andre Ellington in Arizona later in the draft. More of a third down running back. They have Rashard Mendenhall there. I don't know how long he lasts or holds up even, maybe medically or just character-wise. I mean, he quit on the Steelers, didn't even show up to a game. Lots of problems. Stephon Taylor's not going to have those problems. He was a lot quicker in person than I expected at the Senior Bowl. He's the best running back blocker in this draft, bar none. I mean, it's not even a question. He's built for it. He's tough. And you look at him and you don't think, hey, it's not too much. You know, this isn't Le'Veon Bell. This isn't 230 pounds. But, man, he's a meat and potatoes between the tackles runner. He's like Vic Ballard. Very similar players Bruce Arians had last year. I think Bruce Arians is going to really like him and put him in the lineup. All right, so now we get to some sleepers. Probably the one other player before my sleepers that I should talk about is Knile Davis, the running back for the Chiefs, went in the third round. I'm just going to pass on him almost completely. I mean, if he falls third, fourth round, maybe I'll take him. But he's big. He can run a 4-3. It's awesome. But Kansas City, has Andy Reid really used two running backs? When's that happened? Never, by the way. Deuce Staley, I guess, was the last one. They want this change of pace. But I think people are going to make excuses to try and say, Knile Davis, he'll get some playing time behind Jamal Charles. I don't think so unless Charles gets hurt. And even then, I don't think Knile Davis is going to be great. But he's an upside pick. If you like to gamble, I'd much rather gamble on Marcus Lattimore than I would Knile Davis. Lattimore, worse injuries by far. Both are injury prone. Both could have been first-round picks. They would have had great years. But there you go. So some sleepers that I like. The Redskins running backs. Bear with me here, fantasy players. I know what Mike Shanahan has done to you. But he might do it again. So be prepared and get some of these Redskins running backs. Chris Thompson from Florida State. The Redskins took him. I like his talent a lot. If he would not have gotten hurt, he would have been much, much higher up my rankings at the running back position. But he had a big injury late in the season. Coming back, is he someone late in the year that could fill in, that could be the number 2 to Alfred Morris, that, you know Mike Shanahan's going to play some of these guys sometimes. Just go out and get them. And Juwan Jamison from Rutgers can catch passes, still very raw, very young player. He's more of a developmental player for Washington. But, hey, I'm going to take a shot on these guys. Latavius Murray in Oakland, great situation. Latavius Murray, not a player a lot of people were familiar with, kind of came in late in the process. I saw him doing a ton of visits at UCF, so I went and watched him. He's big and he's fast, and that's Oakland in a nutshell, I guess. But the new regime obviously likes him enough to take him in this draft. And Rashad Jennings, he can beat out Rashad Jennings. Maybe it takes a year, but I think he can win that number 2 job. Darren McFadden, injury prone. Latavius Murray's a nice sleeper pick. Mike James from Tampa Bay Buccaneers, starting to get some press, so you're going to have to jump on this earlier. He's probably going to be the number 2 running back in Tampa Bay. Had a decent Senior Bowl. He got there late, but played pretty well. I liked what I saw out of him at the Senior Bowl. Ran with some power, ran with low center of gravity. He's really interesting from a bruising perspective to fill that LeGarrette Blount role, so I like him. Denard Robinson in Jacksonville, Michigan quarterback. Looks like he's going to play primarily at running back with some return ability and maybe play slot receiver every now and then, though they have Ace Sanders out there. Interesting, because Maurice Jones-Drew has the injury, so Denard Robinson's going to be taking RB1 reps in camp. What if he impresses? He's a nice late-round shot as well. And then he has still some bigger names. Andre Ellington, Arizona, I already talked about. Kerwin Williams for Indianapolis. Indianapolis does have a hole there at running back, a third running back. I think Kerwin Williams can win the number 3 spot. So he's a player I like a lot too. How about some undrafted free agents, some late round types that also can impact? Michael Hill out of Missouri Western is one of my deep sleepers. He went to San Diego. Good spot. There's an RB3 job to be won. The Houston Texans is a spot to keep your focus on, undrafted running backs. They have 4 guys there. Ray Graham out of Pittsburgh, Dennis Johnson out of Arkansas, George Wynn out of Cincinnati, and Sierra Wood out of Notre Dame. 1, if not 2 of those running backs can make the roster. And they might practice squad 1 more. I'm betting on Ray Graham and Sierra Wood. I think Graham's the best running back, the more solid running back of the bunch, a little quicker running back, fits the system. Sierra Wood has the most upside. A lot of people like Dennis Johnson. I think he can make the practice squad. Situation to monitor, especially if you have a later rookie draft. If one of these players makes the team, Ben Tate's injury prone. He's probably gone at the end of the year. One of these guys could win the backup job next year. Rex Burkhead in Cincinnati was a later round pick. He's talented, had some injury issues this year at Nebraska. I like him as well. So I think that about covers it. That about covers everyone that I really like. Maybe Ronnie Wingo out of Atlanta is my last deep sleeper that could possibly stick on a team. So pretty good. You know, that's about all I'm considering at this point. Most of those guys later round rookie guys, but guys to look out for. Wide receivers, let's move to them. So we're 20 minutes in already. But wide receivers, I think it's a great group, and I think this is where I'm going to spend those first and second round picks a lot of times on running backs, and then gobble up some receiver depth as I like it, because they fall. I talked about the top 3, and as well as Robert Woods and Marcus Wheaton. I think all 5 of those guys will be starters by the end of the year. In whatever sense of the word you want to use, starter reps. And Justin Hunter as well should see a lot of playing time. Now after that is where you start getting into the late second round, early third round of your rookie drafts. Okay, what do I do now? Keenan Allen out of Cal, went to the Chargers, staying in California. He has a great opportunity. He's very talented. Might be a better NFL player than college player. So he is very intriguing to me. And I think a lot of people are going to know the name because he could have been a first-round pick. So you might have to snatch him up pretty early in the second round. But if he stays healthy, he's going to be a good player. He's going to get a lot of catches, too. Then we get into this next tier that's really tough. 2 guys that I have very close. I just had to make a decision between these 2 in a league. Aaron Dobson went to the Patriots in the second round, and then Stedman Bailey went to the Rams. I ended up going with Aaron Dobson. I know the Patriots haven't evaluated receivers very well, but Dobson's much different than the players that they brought in the past. And I think Dobson is just a very solid player. It looks like he's slated to start in Brandon Lloyd's role this next year. I think he's NFL ready. I think he could have been a first-round pick, and people would have blinked an eye, but they wouldn't have been too unhappy about it. So I think he's well worth a pick. I have him 8th in my rankings right now. I think if you get to the middleweight second round and he's sitting there, maybe even third round he could fall to, you could be looking at a potential steal. Probably more third round. You could find him early third round. You could end up getting a steal of a guy that starts immediately too. So if you're picking at the 1-1, the 1-2, your 3-1, your 3-2, you can get Aaron Dobson. You might be able to get an instant impact plug and play wide receiver 3 out of it. With how New England passes the ball around with Gronkowski's injuries, a lot of potential there. Now Stedman Bailey has more production. Is not in a bad situation in St. Louis. I think Tavon Austin, Chris Givens, Brian Quick. I think Bailey can beat out the 2 second-year guys. But it's just about production. I don't like Sam Bradford. I still don't love this offense. They brought in Jared Cook. I wonder if there's going to be enough balls to go around short and long term for him. So I'm a little bit worried, but the talent's good. He could be a nice red zone threat even at his size. I think he fell too far, finds a hole in the zone really well. So he's kind of third round. I look at him. And then I guess another player kind of fits in there is Quentin Patton for the 49ers. Kind of fits in there too. Now, he went a little bit later in the draft in the 4th round, but a lot of people had him rated as a 2nd-round pick. So what do you do with that? He's in San Francisco. They have a need. I don't think Quentin Patton is he's going to fill in for Anquan Bolden down the line type of player. So a lot of people have him pegged as, hey, here's the next wide receiver 2 for the San Francisco 49ers. I don't believe that, but what I do believe is that he'll make an impact at some point. I think he's Vincent Brown, similar to the Chargers' Vincent Brown. He'll play in the slot, can get a lot of catches. He sometimes goes a little bit higher. I've seen some people just that are very high on his talent, high on a great team like the 49ers, and pick him in the 2nd round. I'd hold off to the 3rd, and I'd much rather have these other guys than reach for him. Now, here comes some upside plays. Terrence Williams for Dallas also went in the 2nd round. Now, Terrence Williams is... he's big, he's fast, he can run the 9 route really well. I just wonder where he's going to play, because I don't think they're going to play him in the slot. So I think it's going to take some time to figure out. Maybe they play him on the outside, put Miles Austin in the slot a bit this year. But I think there's a lot of work to be done. He usually ends up going a little bit too high for my taste. I probably won't have him on very many teams, just because he could be Torrey Smith, great, or he could be a big bust in the league. So I'm kind of passing on him. But one player that I'm a little bit higher on, that it seems is falling in drafts. I mean, I'm seeing him in the 4th round of stuff that he shouldn't be available in even, is Chris Harper for Seattle. I'm just really surprised people are passing on him. He's big, he's physical, he can catch the football. And there is a need in Seattle. I mean, Sidney Rice isn't the model of health. And maybe you're saying, hey, Seattle's a running team. Russell Wilson didn't pass a whole lot. They just got Percy Harvin. They don't have a tight end that's worth passing to in that offense. They don't really have a wide receiver 3. I don't think Golden Tate cuts it. I don't think any of those guys cut it. So you have Percy Harvin, who you'll line up outside, you'll line up in the slot. I think Chris Harper can win the 3 job after him and Sidney Rice. Sidney Rice gets hurt, Percy Harvin gets hurt. I think Chris Harper gets an opportunity, and I think he's better than what they have. I think Chris Harper's my guy in the 3rd and 4th round that I'm just going to be snatching up in these drafts, and I'll keep stashing for a long time. He's fallen really far in a lot of drafts that I've been in so far. So now I think you drop down a pretty big tier after those top 12. I think that's where you start hitting the late round flyers. Josh Boyce for New England. Another big need. Does he beat out Aaron Dobson? I think Josh Boyce profiles more to me like the type of New England pick. I like Josh Boyce, but there's a lot of technique. Another player that just doesn't know how to run routes very well. And New England hasn't shown they can teach anyone how to run routes yet. So I'm passing on him, and I'll opt for these 2 guys. Kenny Stills for the Saints. Down the field threat. I think he fills the Devery Henderson role. Could be a nice bench stash. Another pretty raw player. Or Tavares King for the Broncos. Opportunity's not as good as Kenny Stills, but the talent's probably a little bit better, a little more polished. So you make your decision with those guys. One player to really look out for that could be there late in your drafts on a team with a need a wide receiver and a team that I know had a higher grade than where they took him is Aaron Millett out of Elon. Went to Baltimore in the 7th round. And you're like, yeah, 7th round pick. And I'm kind of like that too. Like, I like to look at the round that they went and think, all right, do I want the 3rd round guy? Do I want the 7th round guy? You know, sometimes that makes that decision for me. Who's going to get the better opportunity? But I know for a fact that the Baltimore Ravens had Millett as a mid-round pick, which had a lot of guys fall to them that they had rated highly. So that's a good thing. And I think Aaron Millett could be more Anquan Bolden than Quentin Patton can even. So it's going to take some time. You need a deep roster to stash him. But Aaron Millett in the later rookie rounds is someone to really look out for as well. So I like him a lot. And then Derek Rogers for the Bills is the undrafted free agent, failed a drug test recently. It's one of the reasons, at least, that he fell in the draft. Maybe the big reason why he fell out of the draft. He's really talented. The Bills have a need. Now, they have some good undrafted free agents there. Derek Rogers, Brandon Kaufman from Eastern Washington as well. But he's someone that a lot of people are investing in. I've seen him all over the board. I've seen him go in the 2nd round of rookie drafts. I've seen him go in the 5th round of rookie drafts. It all depends how your teams value, where these guys get drafted and stuff. So, not too bad. let's see. Marquise Goodwin from the Bills, another guy to talk about. Now, I made a mistake last year in a lot of my rookie drafts, and I took T.J. Graham for the Bills. They took him in the 3rd round, and it was late. You know, these weren't drafts where it really hurt me, or I picked him up in free agency, but I said, man, they took him in the 3rd round. I should pick him up. Obviously, they're going to use him in some form or fashion, and they really didn't. And now with this draft, it looks like he might be on the chopping block. He might barely make it. Marquise Goodwin, I think, is that type of player. Runs a 4.2, gets down the field. Maybe he has a 1 catch for 80 yards, a touchdown in 1 game, does nothing for the next 3 games. Is that something you really want on your fantasy team, or to start thinking about, he had a big game, we put him in the lineup, he got me a goose egg. So he's just the guy I'm going to pass on. Yeah, I don't like it. Let's get into some of the sleepers here. I'm going to pass the top 18. Charles Johnson for the Green Bay Packers went in the 7th round from Grand Valley State. I was hyping him up pre-draft to people. I was saying Dynasty players got to be on your radar. Get him on your radar. Now he's on the Packers. Get him on your radar. He could fill that James Jones role in a year. It's a flyer because he could be cut, but it's a flyer pick that's worth it. He's a big, fast player that just was on another level against his level of competition, and you saw him. He was draftable. That's a really good player. And then right with him is the other Packers receiver, and Kevin Dorsey from Maryland, who they're similar. Dorsey didn't have as much production, obviously a higher level of competition. So maybe if you have some late round picks, you have a taxi squad, you can taxi both of these guys. I have a feeling one works out. I really do. I think one of those 7th round picks works out. Corey Fuller out of Virginia Tech went to the Lions. You know, they have a need. Ryan Broyles might not make it back. That could be pretty interesting. He's a very good player who can catch the ball. More of a slot receiver. I don't really see him as a number 2 or anything. So I think he could see the field. And then some of the more higher profile names that I think people are going to take maybe a little early. Ryan Swope for Arizona. Lots of injury issues. Lots of competition. I'll pass on Swope. Ace Sanders in Jacksonville. He's already hurt. I don't think he's very special. Kobe Hamilton in Cincinnati. I think he's a poor man's Mohamed Sanu. So, you know, really, is he going to be able to get on the field? Those are my fear with those guys. Marcus Wilson in Chicago, kind of a similar thing. Talented, kind of a knucklehead. Chicago does have a little need at receiver, maybe that 3rd receiver, so he's talented enough. He might be someone to target late. Another one of my late round sleepers, Bryce Butler in Oakland. This is just how I roll with later round picks and rookie drafts is give me the upside. You know, maybe I'll get a guy that's cut, that's off the team by camp. I can cut him and replace him, and that is fine. Or I could end up with Marcus Colston. That's what I think Aaron Millett could turn into. So I'll take that shot. There, I can end up with one of those guys that went late. Bryce Butler's another one. Big, strong, fast player, gets down the field. Something that the Oakland Raiders do need. So I'll take a shot on him. Maybe some other players that are some other players that I think could be sleepers, and you might be able to take late. Justin Brown for Pittsburgh is a player that I haven't seen really go in rookie drafts, but you know the need is there for Pittsburgh, and he can make this team as the 5th receiver. That's interesting. Marcus Davis for the Giants. Very, very tenuous for Marcus Davis, being with Tom Coughlin, a guy that refuses to block, refuses to really do anything that he doesn't want to do. So, but he's massively talented. He might be the 4th most talented receiver on that roster as of right now. So I'll take that shot and see if the character stuff works itself out. Rodney Smith for the Minnesota Vikings. I think they have a little bit of need even after Cordero Patterson. Smith is big, fast from Florida State, so I like him. Zach Rogers for the Jets. He was the 3rd receiver in Tennessee. Just really didn't get the opportunity that we saw Derek Rogers, that we saw Justin Hunter, we saw Cordero Patterson get. He could have been drafted if he had. So the Jets have a big need too. Those are the type of undrafted free agent flyers you take on those teams. I have to update my rankings. You can go to drafttv.com, click on fantasy, and at the top you can see the fantasy rankings for the rookies and IDP rookies, and you can print them out. I have to do a little updating on the teams that some of these undrafted players went to, but they are updated every day, so you can check it out. Lastly, let's go over tight ends, and we'll talk about the tight ends. I love Tyler Eifert. I love his talent. cool. I'm kind of glad he went to the Bengals from a fantasy perspective because he's gonna fall. He's gonna fall in drafts, and I'm gonna reap the benefits right here. I'm gonna reap the benefits. I'll take him late in round 1 if I have a semi-tight end need, or I have a player like Vernon Davis or Tony Gonzalez or someone I'm a little worried about. I had a good team last year. I'm a little worried about. Late round 1, give me Tyler Eifert in PPR leagues. I'm taking him 1 overall in the FFP. Not the 1 and the 2, so kind of 2 overall, but I'm taking him because I think he's going to be great. I think Jermaine Gresham's going to be gone in a year. Eifert will come in. He's going to be awesome. I think he's going to get a ton of catches. I think he will be the second option on that offense. Now, the next guys, the next 3 players, I think are lumped together and I think are tough to differentiate. Zach Ertz from Philly was the second tight end off the board. I don't like him all that much. Now, Philadelphia worries me that it could work out really well with him. So, for me, for my personal taste, I'm not taking Zach Ertz very early, but I could definitely see it working out with Chip Kelly. Now, I like James Casey, who they brought in, but Ertz doesn't really block. Might not need to block all that much. He's kind of a red zone threat. I don't see him matching up too well. So I'm going to pass on him for these next 2 guys that I really like, though they went later in the draft, so it makes it a little more of a worry. Travis Kelce for the Kansas City Chiefs. I like him. Now, he's fast, he's big, he's strong, he has good hands, he's a blocker, one of the better blockers in this draft for the tight end position. He just has some off-the-field issues, maybe some drug issues. So are you willing to take that chance on Travis Kelce? I am, and I think Alex Smith's going to use him as a bailout. I think he could be the number 2 option for the Kansas City Chiefs as a receiving option outside of Dwayne Bowe. I maybe 3 outside of Jamal Charles, too. So I really like him. I'll consider him in the second round of rookie drafts. And then the other guy's Jordan Reed for the Washington Redskins. Huge need. Fred Davis coming off the injury, 1-year contract. Jordan Reed's going to be the man. I think Mike Shanahan can use him. He's not going to block anyone, but you're basically getting a receiver at a tight end price at the tight end position with Jordan Reed. And I look at their roster, I see RG3 Alfred Morris, great. Pierre Garçon, that's it. Like, who else is catching footballs from RG3? I think it's going to be Jordan Reed, so I'm taking him. I'm taking him in late second round of rookie drafts, and I'm praying one of those 2 guys falls to me in the FFP league. Now, after that, we have some interesting players that went high in the draft. Gavin Escobar from Dallas, their number 2 tight end, who a lot of people are coming at me because I'm saying, look, he's going to be used to block a lot. And they're saying, oh, I can't block. Everyone tells me he can't block. I was like, dude, you watch him. He's built to block. Martellus Bennett didn't block in college, but you saw him and you're like, this guy can block in the NFL. And that's what I see with Gavin Escobar. Okay, so then they use him block. That doesn't mean he can't do it. I think it's something a lot of people are wrong about. That sometimes if a player doesn't do it, they can't do it. No, not always. So that's why listening to these guys and listening to interviews. That's the difference between another Dallas Cowboy, Terrence Williams, where a lot of people say, maybe he can't do this. He actually admitted to me that he needs some help on some of these things, but we'll see what happens. Gavin Escobar as number 2 tight end, blocker. How long? Jason Witten's going to be there for a while. I'm scared. I love the talent. He was my number 2 tight end coming into the draft. I just don't know about the opportunity, and I hate to do that, but I don't think he can rise up even in 2 tight end sets to be effective for fantasy. I think he'd be a great NFL player, not effective for fantasy. Same thing with my next guy, Vance McDonald for the 49ers. Probably going to play that Delaney Walker role. Another player. Might be able to block in the NFL. I'm not quite as sure about. But just a lot of mouths to feed at San Fran. So I don't know about those guys. Then we get to the next set where that's it. I mean, I think after those 6, I don't really want to draft another tight end in my rookie draft. I really don't. I think it falls off pretty quick and hard. And if you can take a shot at Escobar and McDonald, maybe in deeper roster leagues or tight end premium leagues. But, the Raiders guys I'm interested in. Nick Casa out of Colorado I like a lot. Now, the rumor is that Michael Rivera, who they drafted later, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong there, for Oakland, might be the starter week 1 because they don't have a tight end. I think Casa can win that job. I think he can be a pretty good player. I wouldn't draft him, but he can end up in undrafted free agency if there's some good camp talk, things like that. I might pick him up. Deion Sims in Miami, I think he's going to be more of a blocker. They brought in Dustin Keller. I don't think he's quite the mismatch. He might have a couple, like, Anthony Fasano type, couple good games here and there, but I'm a little fearful of him. Ryan Otten in Jacksonville is a player that ended up in Jacksonville pretty late. I think could be the backup to Mercedes Lewis. But then you get two guys. Here's two guys with pretty good opportunities that could be sleepers. Levine Toillo of Atlanta. Now, I know he's getting drafted some places because people say, Atlanta Falcons replacement for Tony Gonzalez. I mean, they drafted this guy pretty late. He's a blocking specialist. I think he's going to be a blocker. I think they'll take someone next year. I really do. Now, Luke Wilson for Seattle, the other Rice tight end, is athletically gifted, can catch the ball a lot. So, I like him. I don't love him. I just don't know if he can make the roster. I don't think he's better than Zach Miller, so is he really going to get a chance? Maybe some later round players. Jake Stoneburner was an undrafted free agent, went to the Packers. DJ Williams, I don't know if he's really in favor over there. But Stoneburner, kind of a tight end, wide receiver tweener, interesting player. Lucas Reed, the brother of Brooks Reed, the linebacker in Houston, went to the Broncos. And I think the Broncos tight end situation, not as well off as some people think. So I wonder if he could make that roster too. Philip Lutzenkirchen from Auburn went to the Rams. I think there's a spot open on that roster. So other than that, even some of the guys that got drafted, Michael Williams for the Lions, he's a blocker. Justice Cunningham for the Colts, there's no opportunity there. DC Jefferson for the Cardinals, maybe an opportunity. He doesn't have much production. Chris Gregg for the Bills, I know a lot of people like out of Arkansas, high profile, flying around. He's big and fast, but there is an opportunity. So he might be a later round player I could see go, but he's not going to make an impact year one in my opinion. So Ryan Griffin for the Texans, similar thing. So I don't know. I'm in those top six. I'm not drafting anyone in PPR leagues, so I'll kind of move on that. Real quick, let me hit on some IDPs. If you want more IDP talk, let me know. I can do another one of these for IDPs, but linebacker-wise, I think there's about 7, 8, 9. I mean, I think there's a bunch of guys that could get you a lot of tackles in tackle-heavy leagues. Arthur Brown in Baltimore is going to go very high. But guys that people aren't looking for. Jonathan Bostic for Chicago. People are going to take Kevin Minter, are going to take Manti Te'o. Take Jonathan Bostic and reap those benefits because he'll be in coverage. He can get some interceptions too. C.O. Moore for the Raiders. I don't know if he plays inside. If he plays inside, he's going to be awesome. I'll take that ticket. Even if he plays outside, we've seen the Raiders outside linebackers last year be pretty productive. C.O. Moore is a name to remember, and Kiko Alonso for the Bills is a name to remember, who got drafted pretty early over Arthur Brown and probably was going to start year one for them. So people are going to take Minter, Te'o, Ogletree high. You can get some value on these linebackers. Some later round guys. Nico Johnson for the Chiefs. He might be a starter year one and just get a ton of tackle opportunities. So I think the linebacker position, I think you're 10 deep there of guys that can impact almost immediately. Defensive end is very tenuous because a lot of them, the guys that I would have liked for fantasy moved to linebacker. I would have really liked to see, Bjorn Warner play defensive end and stuff like that. We'll see what the official designations end up being, but Ziggy Ansah's the big one. I think there's some 3-4 DNs that can work out. Dayton Jones, I think, can have a big impact, can be used in that way. The guys that got hurt last year, Tank Carradine, Quanterra Smith, maybe you can get a nice value for those players. Carradine on San Fran, Smith in Denver, and then Devontae Moore for the Giants. If there's someone that can utilize his talent, it's New York. So I like those guys a lot. And then Marcus Hunt for the Bengals. If you want an upside play, he might fill Michael Johnson's role. Not a bad player to get. D-tackle I won't really touch on. You can look at the rankings on the site. A lot of that's projection. But Akeem Spence from Tampa Bay. There's some good talk about him potentially starting year one. He's someone to look out for. Cornerback, same thing. You can look on the site for the rankings. Nothing too out of the ordinary there. I like Leon McFadden for Cleveland. I think he could win the number 2 job immediately. He's a great tackler, physical player, so he's someone I like a lot. And then the safety position, which if you're doing DBs, that's what you want, right? And I think the top 4 are pretty well cemented, whatever order you have them in. Kenny Vaccaro, Matt Elam, Jonathan Cyprien, Eric Reed. I like DJ Swearinger for the Texans. I think he gets a shot, lots of tackle opportunities. I love Texans safeties because you can get them cheaply, and they're usually fairly productive for you. Shamarko Thomas for Pittsburgh. not going to start year one, but someone you could stash. And I think really after the top 5, you have Shamarko Thomas, and then I don't know if anyone else is really going to start. TJ McDonald for St. Louis, he has the opportunity, so you might be a guy opportunity-wise if you need someone to fill in immediately. But after that, you can take a look at the rankings there as well at drafttv.com. Click on fantasy, go to the rankings, and we'll do it up well. Let me know if there's anything you want to see fantasy-wise on the site. I'm trying to think of some more to do. I'm going to do more of these vlogs. If you like this, let me know on Twitter at Shane P. Hallam or at DraftTV, and you can let me know that. But well, especially when we get into the summer, we'll be doing a lot more with this. I like these kind of casual talking things. I think that's can help people out, so maybe get some other people involved too. But thanks everyone. Got on long enough, so thank you very much, and I will talk to you later.